My sister made fun of my cheap funeral dress in front of everyone. She had no idea it was $25,000. I owned her favorite brand, and she already had an $18 per hour job offer signed. The day we buried my mother, my family didn't just try to bury her memory. They tried to bury me. They mocked my life's work, planned to seize my inheritance, and dismiss me as the family disappointment. What they didn't know, I was already a queen, and they were about to feel the full, crushing weight of my crown. I stood there at my mother's grave, the San Diego sun beating down mercilessly on my black dress. My fingers, still trembling from grief, clutched a single white rose. This dress? It was my own design, a masterpiece of quiet luxury, crafted from fabric so exclusive it'd make a fashion editor swoon. It was worth more than their cars combined. But to my family it looked economical. "I suppose it's the best you could do with that failing little shop of yours," Brianna whispered, loudly enough for everyone to hear. Her voice, laced with its usual condescending sweetness, always managed to slice. Always was the family disappointment. My jaw clenched so tight I thought it might shatter. I kept my eyes fixed on Mother's headstone. The polished granite reflected the October sky, a stark, painful contrast to the darkness settling in my chest. Then Ethan sidled up, his expensive cologne assaulting me before his voice did. "Catherine, if you need a loan to keep the boutique afloat, just ask." I've always said, managing finances isn't for everyone. A sharp memory flashed. Mother, teaching 8-year-old me to sew, her gentle hands guiding mine. "They'll see your light someday, Katie," she'd whispered. "Just wait." Martha's little hobby. My father's booming voice cut through the solemn silence, carrying that familiar, dismissive tone he reserved exclusively for anything I achieved. "Catherine insists on clinging to it, but we all know it's just sentimentality." My heart hammered against my ribs, a trapped bird desperate to escape. I swallowed hard, fighting back tears I absolutely refused to shed. Not here. Not in front of them. I ran my fingers along the hem of my dress. This dress that Brianna just mocked? It cost more than her monthly rent. $25,000. It was from my own label, worn by celebrities, gracing magazine covers. Last spring, away from them, in the privacy of my actual headquarters, I'd shown Mother my newest collection. She'd beamed, touching the fabrics with reverent fingers. "You were always meant for greatness, Catherine." For a decade, I'd maintained this facade. The struggling daughter clinging to her mother's little shop. Meanwhile, I was secretly building a fashion empire under the name K. Morgan. It was my shield. It protected me from their manipulation, their constant need to claim credit for any success, their inevitable demands for money. But Mother was gone now. The one person who knew both sides of my life lay beneath fresh soil and unanswered questions. Maybe, I thought, the time for pretending was finally over. "I managed just fine, thank you," I told Ethan, stepping away from his condescending offer. Father cleared his throat, drawing attention like he was about to announce quarterly earnings. "About the boutique property. I've already contacted a realtor. The location has excellent development potential, and the proceeds will benefit the whole family." "Mother left the boutique to me," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "It's not for sale." Their laughter, light and dismissive, rippled through the cemetery. Too loud for this sacred space. Too disrespectful for this moment of grief. Brianna's perfectly manicured hand patted my shoulder with theatrical sympathy. "Oh, Catherine, always so sentimental about that little store." The way she said "little store" made it sound like a child's lemonade stand. "Dad knows what's best. The property is worth far more than whatever you're making selling homemade scarves." My father stepped closer, towering over me with the practiced intimidation he'd perfected over decades of business dealings. "We'll discuss this tomorrow at my house. 2:00. Don't be difficult, Catherine." The implicit threat was clear. They intended to take the one thing they thought I had. The one connection to my mother they believed mattered to me. What they didn't know could fill libraries. "Miss Morgan." Eleanor's voice cut through the tension like a razor. She stood by the path, car keys in hand, her posture protective and professional. "Your conference call is scheduled in 30 minutes. Brianna snorted delicately. Still keeping Mother's shop assistant around? How sweet. though I imagine she works for tips at this point. Eleanor said nothing, her dignified silence preserving the secret that she was actually my executive vice president, overseeing operations in 12 countries. Her salary would make Brianna choke on her imported champagne. My father frowned, checking his watch. Conference call? About thread inventory. His attempt at humor fell flat, even to his own ears. I should have left. Followed Eleanor to the waiting car, prepared for the actual call with my Tokyo team about the new flagship store opening. Returned to my real life. Instead, I made a decision. Eleanor, please reschedule the call. I met her eyes meaningfully. I need you with me tonight. Eleanor's professional mask didn't slip, but I caught the slight arch of her eyebrow, surprised at my deviation from protocol. Of course, Miss Morgan. I'll take care of it. My family watched, a mix of confusion and dismissal on their faces. They saw what they'd always seen, meek Catherine with her mother's part-time helper. Eleanor stepped forward, her hand briefly squeezing mine in understanding as she came to stand beside me. Tomorrow, I murmured, just for her ears, they'll learn what I've built. My family turned away, already discussing dinner plans, as if we hadn't just buried my mother. As if they hadn't just threatened to take what was mine. Their voices faded as they walked toward their expensive cars purchased with borrowed money and refinanced homes. I remained at the grave, one hand still holding the white rose, the other clutching Eleanor's steady presence beside me. The weight of 10 years of secrets balanced against the imminent revelation of truth. Mother knew this day would come. She prepared for it. And now, so would I. Later that evening, the San Diego harbor glittered under the setting sun as I stood at my penthouse window. The same waters stretched toward the cemetery, but from 40 floors up, grief felt different. More strategic than raw. Everything's organized as you requested, Eleanor said, placing several folders on my glass desk. Her silver hair caught the sunset's orange glow as she arranged them with military precision. I ran my fingers along the embossed KM logo before opening the first one. Show me everything. Eleanor nodded. All business now. Ethan first. He's under active SEC investigation for insider trading on the Westlake merger, leveraged 300% beyond his assets. If convicted, 7 years minimum. The file contained bank statements, credit reports, legal documents, a paper trail of my brother's collapse. How much does he need? I asked. $850,000 for the defense team capable of getting charges reduced to probation. I thought of his condescending offer at the cemetery. Alone, as if I needed his help. Brianna next, Eleanor continued, opening a crimson folder. $9,500 monthly for the Beverly Hills rental. Credit cards maxed to their limits. Personal loans totaling $418,000. One missed payment away from eviction. The photographs showed Brianna at charity galas, champagne in hand, draped in borrowed designer pieces, maintaining appearances while drowning in debt. And father. Eleanor hesitated, uncharacteristic for her. Richard's portfolio collapsed after the Meridian investment. Foreclosure notices on both coastal properties. He's been taking increasingly risky refinancing options. His financial advisor resigned last month. I took the thickest folder, labeled Morgan Property Development, and spread its contents across my desk. Land surveys. Zoning applications. Developer proposals. He's been plotting to sell the boutique property for years, I said, the betrayal fresh despite my suspicions. 3 different developers over 5 years, Eleanor confirmed. He accelerated efforts after your mother's diagnosis. My throat tightened. He was waiting for her to die. There's more. Eleanor slid over her tablet. Intercepted emails between your siblings from last week. I scrolled through messages arranging how they would pressure me after the funeral. Ethan suggesting psychological tactics. Brianna volunteering to play the concerned sister. Richard coordinating their approach. They've been undermining your lease renewal behind the scenes, Eleanor added. Brianna's contact at the city planning office has been helping delay permits for your expansion. I pushed back from the desk, moving toward the wall of windows where San Diego sprawled beneath me. Somewhere down there, my family was likely congratulating themselves on how they'd divide the spoils of what they thought was a modest boutique. Show me mother's correspondence, I said. Eleanor retrieved a leather-bound portfolio from the safe. Inside were years of letters, cards, and legal directives from mother, all protected from family interference. I traced her handwriting with my fingertip. She kept my success secret because I asked her to. She protected your privacy fiercely, Eleanor agreed, even from your father. A memory surfaced, mother in her hospital bed 2 weeks ago, her voice barely above a whisper as she clutched my hand. They never deserved to know, Katie. Never. I've spent a decade hiding my success, I said, more to myself than Eleanor. Now it becomes my shield. The realization settled in my chest. I wasn't the daughter needing protection anymore. I was the defender of mother's legacy. The boutique was never just a store, I said. It was a sanctuary from their toxicity. Eleanor nodded. Revealing your identity as Kay, Morgan will change everything permanently. Then let's be clear about exactly what they're facing. I returned to the desk. What does Richard need to avoid bankruptcy? Eleanor consulted her notes. $1.3 million within 60 days to prevent foreclosure proceedings and maintain basic living expenses. And Ethan's timeline? Court date in 3 months. Without top representation, he's looking at a 5-year minimum sentence and a permanent ban from the financial sector. Brianna, 1 month from eviction. Credit score below 500. She can't qualify for new housing without a cosigner or significant cash deposit. I studied their photographs. Not cartoon villains, but family members trapped by their own choices, clinging desperately to facades as their worlds crumbled beneath them. Their fear makes them dangerous, I observed. They have nothing left to lose, except appearances. Eleanor agreed. Richard has always positioned himself as the family patriarch, despite his financial failures. Public image matters more to them than actual stability. Good. I stood. Decision made. What resources do we have available? Eleanor shifted into executive mode. KM Atelier's global resources are at your disposal. Legal team on standby. Media connections primed if necessary. Complete financial leverage. I reached for my phone, dialing Samuel Whitaker. After 2 rings, his measured voice answered. Samuel, it's Catherine Morgan. I need mother's estate documents immediately. All of them. While he confirmed, I turned back to the dossiers of family financial disasters spread across my desk. Do we have everything we need? I asked Eleanor. Complete dossiers on their financial situations. Your mother's legal protections are ironclad. The boutique property is secured through 3 separate trusts. I nodded, conviction hardening. Tomorrow, we show them who I really am. Eleanor's expression shifted slightly. They'll try to take credit for your success once they know. A smile touched my lips for the first time since mother's funeral. That's exactly what I'm counting on. The next morning, I arrived at the boutique 3 hours before my family was due to appear. Morning light streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the sales floor that mother and I had meticulously designed to appear modest, yet tasteful. A space created to maintain the illusion of the struggling daughter. Samuel waited inside, a leather portfolio tucked under his arm, his silver-framed glasses catching the sunlight. Catherine. He extended a manila envelope. Your mother's final arrangements, as you requested. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it. I scanned the documents, then looked up sharply. Mother left me everything? Not just the boutique. Samuel nodded, his expression solemn. Complete control of the Morgan family estate. She amended her will last year, when her diagnosis came through. You are the sole executor, with full authority over all assets. I sank into the nearest chair, a vintage piece from the 1960s that mother loved. They don't know, do they? No. Your father believes the estate will be divided equally, with him maintaining control as family patriarch. Samuel removed more papers from his portfolio. Your investigator delivered this an hour ago. Your family met with Westlake developers this morning at 8. My stomach tightened. Before mother was even cold in her grave. Samuel adjusted his glasses. They're moving quickly. The developer's proposal includes demolishing this building for a mixed-use complex. The paperwork was prepared weeks ago. I stood, smoothing the lines of my charcoal pencil skirt. They scheduled our meeting at father's house. Home field advantage. A psychological tactic, Samuel confirmed. Common in high-stakes negotiations. I walked to the window, watching a young woman admire the display of hand-stitched scarves. She had no idea the woman who created them oversaw production facilities on 3 continents. We're changing the location, I decided, turning back to Samuel. The meeting happens here. Not at his house. A soft knock at the back door interrupted us. Eleanor entered, carrying a leather document case stamped with the KM Atelier logo. The Tokyo team confirmed the flagship opening next month, she said, placing the case on the counter. And I brought the Volante acquisition papers. Became official yesterday. I raised an eyebrow. The business news father never read. Eleanor's lips curved upward. Biggest fashion acquisition of the quarter. $2 billion. And you're the majority stakeholder. Show them who K. Morgan really is, Samuel suggested, his usually neutral expression brightening with anticipation. I checked my watch. 2 hours until they arrived. Eleanor, call the office. I want Javier and the design team working here when my family walks in. Eleanor nodded, already typing on her phone. Full reveal, she asked. For the first time since Mother's funeral, I felt the corner of my mouth lift in what might have been a smile. Every last detail. The boutique's transformation happened with military precision. 40 minutes later, the modest storefront remained intact. But the back area, with its employees-only sign, now revealed its true nature, a glass store leading to 35,000 square feet of state-of-the-art design headquarters. I walked through the space, watching as my most talented designers arranged their workstations. Mannequins displaying pieces from next season's collection lined the hallway. Awards and magazine covers featuring my work adorned walls that my family had never seen. Eleanor approached, tablet in hand. They're here, earlier than expected. I straightened my shoulders. Perfect. Let them wait in the boutique for exactly 5 minutes. The surveillance monitor showed my family entering the front shop, their faces pinched with impatience. Brianna immediately touched the fabric of a display dress, her lips curling in poorly disguised contempt. Ethan checked his watch repeatedly, while father stood in the center of the room, hands clasped behind his back like a general surveying conquered territory. They have no idea, Eleanor murmured beside me. Time to educate them. I moved toward the door, pausing with my hand on the handle. 10 years of hiding my success, of enduring their condescension, of protecting myself from their inevitable attempts to claim credit or demand money, all of it ended the moment I opened this door. I pushed it open and walked into the boutique. Thank you for coming, I said, my voice steady. If you'll follow me, we can discuss Mother's estate in my actual office. Confusion flickered across their faces as I led them past the employees-only sign and through the glass doors. The reaction was immediate. Brianna's sharp intake of breath, Ethan's faltering step, father's momentary freeze. Miss Morgan, the Paris team needs your approval on the fabric selections, a young designer called, holding out a tablet as we passed. Thank you, Adrian. Tell them the cerulean option for the fall collection, I replied, without breaking stride. Father's face darkened. What is this, Catherine? I led them into my executive conference room, where floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the San Diego skyline. Documents were arranged precisely at each seat. This, I said, gesturing for them to sit, is KM Atelier's West Coast headquarters. One of 12 facilities worldwide. KM. Brianna stared at the logo on the wall, her perfectly manicured hand covering her mouth. You're K. Morgan? I took my seat at the head of the table. I am. Ethan picked up the nearest document, his eyes widening as he scanned the content. This says annual revenue of $2.4 billion. He looked at me bewildered. Continually. Correct. I folded my hands on the polished table surface. 52 stores worldwide. 7,200 employees. Correct. Father slammed his palm on the table. This is absurd. You've been running a small boutique Mother left you. No, I replied calmly. I've been running a global fashion empire that I built myself. The boutique was just the public face I showed you. I pressed a button on a remote, and the wall screen illuminated with financial documents. I also know about your financial situations. All of them. Their faces drained of color as they recognized their own names on mortgage foreclosure notices, SEC investigation documents, credit reports. "You've been lying to us for years." Brianna hissed, her voice vibrating with anger. "I've been protecting myself," I corrected her. "From exactly this reaction. From your attempts to control, dismiss, or take credit for what I've built." The silence that followed was profound. For the first time in my adult life, my family had nothing to say. Eleanor entered with another leather portfolio. "The Volante acquisition papers you asked for, Ms. Morgan." "Thank you, Eleanor." I accepted the documents and slid them toward my family. "The business news you missed yesterday. My company just acquired Volante for $2 billion. Father attempted to rally, straightening his shoulders. "As your father, I should have been informed about all this. I could have guided you, provided connections." "No," I interrupted, my voice firm, but not unkind. "You lost that right when you dismissed everything I built as mother's little hobby. When you called me the family disappointment at her funeral." Samuel entered with another set of documents. "I've brought the estate paperwork as requested, Ms. Morgan." "Thank you, Samuel." I addressed my family again. Mother knew exactly what she was doing. She left me as executor of the entire Morgan estate, not just the boutique. Samuel nodded. "Your mother ensured this outcome with multiple witnesses and irrefutable documentation." Father's face flushed deep red. "This is preposterous. I am the head of this family. I make the decisions about our legacy." "Not anymore," I said quietly. "I'm willing to help you all, but only on my terms." Brianna and Ethan exchanged glances, the reality of their situation sinking in. Their financial salvation sat across the table, wearing a dress that cost more than their monthly expenses combined. 3 days later, the initial satisfaction of their shocked faces had faded, replaced by something colder and more calculated. "We need to assess all potential responses," I said, studying the financial advisors seated around me. Their expressions reflected professional detachment, exactly what I needed right now. Eleanor sat to my right, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat chignon, her tablet displaying our agenda. My legal team occupied the far end of the table, manila folders containing draft documents spread before them. "This isn't about feelings anymore," I told them, though part of me wondered if it ever truly was. "I need comprehensive analysis, tax implications if I provide assistance, media management strategies, business reputation protection." My chief legal counsel slid 3 folders toward me. "As requested, we've prepared conditional support documents for each family member." I opened the first folder. Richard's tenancy agreement outlines terms for him to remain in a company-owned property significantly smaller than his current home, but still comfortable for a man of 72. The second folder contained Ethan's legal representation contract, offering him top counsel but requiring full cooperation with the SEC investigation. Brianna's employment offer sat in the third folder, a sales trainee position at $18 per hour at our accessories subsidiary. No special treatment. Standard performance evaluations. Eleanor studied my face. "They'll see any help as weakness they can exploit." I closed the folders with a decisive snap. That's why every dollar comes with accountability. The finance director raised concerns about inheritance tax implications. The PR team debated how to position these family contracts if news leaked to the industry press. I listened, asking pointed questions, analyzing angles I hadn't considered. The sunlight shifted across the table as morning became afternoon. My team worked with the precision of a Swiss watch, each component functioning in perfect harmony. This is why KM Atelier dominates global markets, not just my designs, but the people I've carefully selected to execute our vision. Later, in my office, Eleanor brought coffee and a folder of documents detailing my family's activities since our confrontation. "Your father has consulted with 3 competing attorneys about contesting your mother's will," she reported, setting the cup beside my computer. "The firm in La Jolla is particularly aggressive with inheritance disputes." I nodded, unsurprised. "And Ethan? He's reached out to 4 business journalists, pitching a story about the Morgan fashion dynasty, suggesting a family legacy narrative." My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. already attempting to rewrite history. Eleanor continued with practiced efficiency. Brianna has been posting on social media vague hints about a major family business announcement coming soon. I turned to the window, gazing at San Diego's skyline. The horizon stretched beyond the harbor, vast and blue. Unlike my family's vision, which extended only as far as their next financial rescue. Have our PR team prepare contingency statements for each scenario, I said. The K. Morgan brand remains separate from family drama. Eleanor made a note. We've documented everything. Calls, meetings, social media activity. If this escalates, we have a comprehensive record. I noticed she was tracking my family's movements with the same precision she applied to our global operations. This wasn't confrontational, just preparation for multiple scenarios. We reviewed the documents until evening shadows lengthened across the office floor. The preparation felt thorough, methodical. I'd spent a decade building my company with this level of attention to detail. My phone chimed with a notification. Eleanor glanced at her tablet simultaneously, her brow furrowing. Fashion Week Insider just published a blog post, she said. They're suggesting K. Morgan is actually Richard Morgan's creation, with you as the public face. Something cold settled in my stomach. I pulled up the article on my screen, scanning the text. The writer cited an anonymous industry source, claiming my father had been the creative force behind KM Atelier for years. Brianna's friend Melissa liked and shared it 10 minutes ago, Eleanor added, showing me the social media activity. I pushed back from my desk, a surge of anger breaking through my carefully constructed calm. They'd moved beyond targeting my inheritance to attacking my professional identity, my life's work. I expected financial manipulation, I said, my voice tight. But this is different. They're trying to take credit for everything I've built. Eleanor nodded, understanding the escalation. They're more strategic than we anticipated. The stakes have risen beyond a simple inheritance dispute. Now my professional reputation, the empire I've spent a decade creating, is at risk. I stood, decision made. They're not taking what I built. My voice sounded different, even to my own ears. Resolute, unbending. Time for phase 2. 4 days later, I finalized the last details with my legal team. The conference room was silent, except for the occasional turning of a page. The morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the San Diego skyline beyond. Each contract addresses their specific vulnerabilities, I explained, tapping the stack of documents. Father can remain in a smaller home as my tenant, provided he acknowledges publicly that I built this company alone. Eleanor studied the papers with practiced eyes. And Ethan gets the top SEC defense attorney, but only if he fully cooperates with the investigation and admits to his own actions rather than trying to deflect blame. The attorney nodded approvingly. The terms are fair but firm, Miss Morgan. And Brianna? Eleanor asked. I slid forward the third contract. Sales trainee position at our Beverly Hills subsidiary. $18 an hour. Standard performance evaluations. No special treatment. Eleanor raised an eyebrow. She won't like starting at the bottom. She needs to understand what actual work looks like. I squared the contracts into a neat pile. This isn't about punishment. It's about establishing reality. My mind shifted to strategy. We present these as non-negotiable. They can accept my terms or walk away with nothing. They'll see this as an attack, the attorney warned. It's a business negotiation, I replied, rolling my shoulders to release the tension. Not a family reconciliation. Eleanor's phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen, her expression tightening. Catherine. Her voice carried an urgency I rarely heard. Your father has scheduled a press conference for tomorrow morning. What? The word escaped sharper than I intended. Eleanor turned her laptop toward me. Richard Morgan will announce the family behind K. Morgan at 9 tomorrow. I felt the blood draining from my face. A decade of careful work, my reputation, my independence, threatened in minutes by a desperate old man. He can't prove anything, the attorney said quickly. It's just bluster. He doesn't need proof. I countered, standing abruptly. Just enough confusion to damage our brand and the Volante acquisition. My heart hammered against my ribs. But my voice remained steady. They're trying to force my hand. For a moment, the gravity of what I'd built, what was at stake, threatened to overwhelm me. Then clarity cut through the chaos like a perfectly placed seam. Move everything forward, I decided. Tonight, not tomorrow. Tonight? Eleanor looked surprised, but didn't question my judgment. They think they have time to prepare. I reached for my phone. Let's show them they don't. My fingers dialed Samuel's number. Samuel, we need to move the meeting to tonight. 7 o'clock. I paused, listening. Yes, everything must be ready. They're planning to announce themselves as the faces behind Kay Morgan tomorrow morning. Eleanor was already typing furiously, alerting our teams. The attorney gathered the contracts, making notes for last-minute adjustments. Will the board support accelerating this timeline? He asked. They already approved our strategy, I reminded him. The timing doesn't change that. Outside the window, clouds gathered over the harbor, the shifting weather mirroring the approaching storm in my professional life. For a decade, I'd hidden in the shadow of their dismissal. Tonight, that ends. Eleanor finished her calls and approached with quiet determination. Security is confirmed for tonight. Legal will have the updated documents ready within the hour. PR team is standing by. I nodded, feeling an unexpected calm settle over me. Richard always taught me that business requires perfect timing. I allowed myself a small smile. Just not the lesson he intended. The team dispersed, leaving Eleanor and me alone in the conference room. They won't see this coming, Eleanor said, her confidence unwavering. We're ready. I closed my eyes briefly, thinking of my mother. The boutique wasn't just a store to her, it was a sanctuary from my father's constant belittling. A place where creativity trumped cruelty. It's time, I said, opening my eyes. Time to secure my mother's legacy. Eleanor squeezed my hand, the gesture brief but meaningful. And your own. The next hours blurred into focused preparation, documents reprinted, security positioned, evidence organized. With each passing minute, I felt myself transform from the daughter they dismissed into the business leader I'd always been. Tonight, they'd face not the Catherine they thought they knew, but Kay Morgan, CEO of a fashion empire built without their knowledge or support. Tonight, the family who never believed in me would discover exactly what I was capable of. That evening, I gripped the polished conference table as Thomas Volante entered behind my father. The Italian designer's presence hit me like a physical blow. The founder of the luxury label I'd acquired just last week should be in Milan, preparing for Fashion Week, not standing in my San Diego office beside my father. Catherine. My father's voice carried the same dismissive confidence he'd wielded my entire life, despite the foreclosure notices piling up at his coastal estate. He gestured to Thomas as if introducing old friends. I believe you know Mr. Volante. Eleanor stepped closer to my chair. A subtle shift of alliance that didn't escape my father's notice. Miss Morgan, Thomas Volante's accent wrapped around my name like expensive silk hiding a razor's edge. Or should I say, Kay Morgan? It seems we have much to discuss regarding the acquisition terms. My stomach tightened. Of all the contingencies we prepared for, this alliance wasn't among them. What's this about? I kept my voice level, though my pulse thundered in my ears. Brianna slid a leather portfolio across the gleaming table. Her smile reminded me of when she would hold my favorite dolls just out of reach as a child. The Volante acquisition numbers. She tapped manicured fingernails against the portfolio. Thomas has concerns about how they were represented. Ethan leaned forward, his cologne overwhelming the subtle scent of the fresh lilies Eleanor had placed in the office earlier. The board might be interested in how you've maintained two separate identities while running a publicly traded company. The pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just about the boutique anymore. They'd found the one pressure point I hadn't anticipated. Thomas opened the portfolio, revealing spreadsheets I recognized from our confidential negotiations. These projections for the Milan factory, they appear to have been manipulated. My father stood taller, triumph flashing across his face. We're giving you one chance, Catherine. Bring the family into company leadership. Board positions for Ethan and me. VP of Public Relations for Brianna. We're trying to protect you from yourself. Brianna's voice dripped with theatrical concern, the same tone she used when telling Mother I wasn't cut out for design school. The shareholders deserve to know who's really behind the company. Thomas cleared his throat. If these discrepancies become public, it could delay or even cancel our acquisition. The market doesn't respond well to uncertainty. Ethan straightened his tie. The picture of professionalism, despite the SEC investigation looming over him. The Securities and Exchange Commission might be interested in how you've kept your identity hidden all these years. For a single heartbeat, doubt whispered through me. They'd escalated beyond anything I expected, beyond the boutique, beyond inheritance, straight to the heart of everything I'd built. My phone vibrated once in my pocket. I slipped it out just enough to see Eleanor's text. Contingency protocol? I gave her the slightest nod and typed back a single word, activate. Eleanor left the room without a word, her footsteps fading down the hallway. The silence stretched as my family exchanged victorious glances. You understand what's at stake, my father said. Not a question, but a statement of fact. This isn't just about family anymore. This is your entire company. Your reputation. I stood slowly, buying time. You've clearly put thought into this. Brianna smiled wider. We always knew you were hiding something. Just not something this valuable. The conference room door opened before I could respond. Eleanor returned with Samuel Whitaker and 2 members of my legal team. They carried tablets and document folders, moving with practiced efficiency that spoke of preparation. Mr. Volante. Samuel extended his hand with professional courtesy. A pleasure to see you again. Thomas frowned, confusion crossing his features. Again? Samuel placed a document in front of him. Your signed acknowledgement of Catherine Morgan's identity as Kay Morgan, dated prior to acquisition negotiations. Notarized and witnessed. Color drained from Thomas's face as he stared at his own signature. Eleanor connected her tablet to the room's display screen. Shall I play the recorded conversation from yesterday evening? The one where Mr. Morgan offered you 10% of his proposed board compensation in exchange for your support today. My father's posture stiffened. You've been recording us? Not you specifically, I replied, finding my voice strengthened by their shocked expressions. We record all calls related to acquisitions as standard practice. Thomas called our acquisition team yesterday. Standard protocol flagged certain keywords for review. The legal team distributed thick document packages to each family member. The weight of the folders seemed to physically push Brianna back into her seat. These are your options, I explained, watching their expressions shift from triumph to uncertainty. Every scenario we anticipated. Every potential attack. With appropriate responses documented. Eleanor tapped her tablet, changing the display to show complex organizational charts. This is what happens if you contest the acquisition. This is what happens if you approach the SEC. This is what happens if you call a press conference. Samuel stepped forward. And these are the terms Ms. Morgan is prepared to offer. Should you choose cooperation instead of confrontation? I watched understanding dawn across their faces. The realization that I'd been planning for this moment as methodically as they had, but with vastly greater resources. You have 1 hour to decide, I told them, gathering my notes and standing. My terms are non-negotiable. I have an emergency board meeting to attend. You're leaving us here? Ethan's voice had lost its condescending edge. Eleanor will answer any questions you have. Samuel will confirm the legality of the documents. I paused at the door, turning back to face them. If you reject these terms, I am prepared to cut all ties permanently. Thomas Volante approached me, his expression resigned. The acquisition? Will proceed as planned, I assured him, provided there are no further complications. As I walked out, Eleanor's voice carried clearly. Ms. Morgan won't negotiate further. Those terms are final. Samuel added, these documents are binding once signed. I recommend you read them carefully. The boardroom door closed behind me, and for the first time since Mother's funeral, I took a full, deep breath. The stakes had never been higher, but neither had my resolve. Whatever they decided in the next hour would determine our relationship permanently. I straightened my shoulders and walked toward the waiting board members. By the time I returned, I'd know whether I still had a family. 10 minutes later, I returned to the executive floor, my heels striking a steady rhythm against the polished marble. The sound announced my presence before I rounded the corner into the conference room where my family waited with the contracts. They fell silent when I entered. Richard stood at the window, silhouetted against the San Diego skyline, his shoulders rigid with the pride that had defined him for decades. Brianna perched on the edge of a leather chair, phone clutched in her manicured hands. Ethan paced near the door, his usual smirk replaced by a tightness around his eyes that betrayed his fear. Behind me, board members and key employees filed in quietly, positioning themselves along the wall. This confrontation would have witnesses, professionals who had respected me for years while my family dismissed me for just as long. "Have you reached a decision?" I asked, placing my hands flat on the polished table. "This is ridiculous, Catherine." Richard turned from the window, his voice carrying the authoritative tone he'd wielded my entire life. "These terms are insulting. I built this family. I gave you everything. Everything." My laugh came out sharper than I intended. "You gave me criticism, doubt, and dismissal. Mother gave me belief." Richard's face hardened. "Your mother would want you to forgive family. She valued loyalty above all." The words landed like a physical blow, invoking Mother's memory as his final manipulation. For a moment, the old guilt rose in my chest. The practiced response of a lifetime to acquiesce, to keep peace, fluttered at the edges of my resolve. Then I remembered the letters. "Mother knew exactly who you were." I opened the leather portfolio Eleanor had handed me moments before I entered. "That's why she protected me from you." I removed a stack of letters bound with faded blue ribbon. Mother's handwriting flowed across the aged paper in elegant cursive. I placed them on the table and slid them toward Richard. Mother documented everything. Every dismissive comment. Every attempt to undermine my business. Every conversation where you planned to rescue me from my little hobby once she was gone. Ethan stopped pacing. "You're bluffing." "Page 16, I said, not taking my eyes off Richard. "The night you suggested selling my boutique space to cover your SEC legal fees." Brianna rushed to grab the letters, but Eleanor stepped forward and placed a thick folder on the table. "Miss Morgan asked me to keep records as well," Eleanor said, her voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who had witnessed decades of family manipulation. "Every phone call where you disparaged Catherine's abilities. Every attempt to contact her landlord about breaking her lease." Richard's face flushed red. "This is a business meeting, not a therapy session. Your emotional grievances aren't relevant to." "They're entirely relevant," said Thomas Vellante, stepping into the room. My heart stuttered. Thomas's presence was Richard's trump card, the founder of the luxury label I'd just acquired, the man my father tried to manipulate into threatening my company's stability. Richard's expression shifted from anger to smug satisfaction. "Thomas understands what's at stake here." "I certainly do," Thomas said, nodding to me before facing my family. "That's why I need to clarify something. Yesterday, Richard offered me a substantial kickback if I threatened to pull out of our acquisition agreement." The room fell silent. Even the board members shifted uncomfortably. "That's absurd," Richard sputtered. "I was protecting family interests." "By attempting to sabotage mine," I said. "Just as you've always done." I turned to address each false narrative they'd constructed. To Ethan, I revealed the SEC documents showing his attempts to deflect blame onto junior associates. To Brianna, I presented the social media strategy she drafted, announcing herself as the creative force behind K. Morgan. To Richard, I displayed the real estate developer's proposal for my boutique property, dated 3 weeks before Mother's death. The board chairman cleared his throat. "Speaking for everyone present, Miss Morgan built this company without family assistance. We've witnessed her work ethic, vision, and integrity firsthand." Richard's expression darkened. "This is a family matter." "No," I corrected him. "This is a business decision, and the business belongs to me." I slid 3 folders across the table, one to each family member. "Sign the contracts now or leave with nothing." The atmosphere shifted. The temporary victory of my revelation at the boutique paled compared to this moment. This wasn't temporary. This was permanent. Ethan broke first. Always the pragmatist, he recognized defeat when he saw it. He flipped through the contract, jaw tightening at the clause requiring his full cooperation with the SEC investigation in exchange for legal representation. "This legal team will cost a fortune," he muttered, reaching for a pen. "Yes, it will," I agreed. "My fortune." Richard watched his son sign with disbelief etched into every line of his face. His control, the cornerstone of his identity, crumbled visibly. For 72 years, he'd navigated life through intimidation and authority. Now, in a room full of witnesses, that power dissolved. Brianna stared at me, tears welling in her eyes. "You really don't need us, do you?" The question carried the weight of a lifetime of assumptions, that I was the weak one, the disappointing one, the one who needed rescue. "I never did," I told her honestly. "But I'm offering you a chance anyway." Her hand trembled as she took the pen. The contract before her outlined her position as a sales trainee, $18 per hour, standard evaluation metrics, no special treatment. It was more than fair, given her complete lack of relevant experience. It was also more than she deserved, given her years of mockery. Richard remained standing, pride battling with financial reality. The foreclosure notices on his coastal properties left him little choice, but admitting defeat came harder to him than to his children. "This is how you honor your mother? By humiliating your father." His voice broke on the final word. "Mother left you a choice in her will," I reminded him. "Live in the 3-bedroom rental property I'm offering, or find your own housing. Those same options remain on the table." The board stood united behind me. Eleanor and Samuel flanked me like sentinels. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the outnumbered one in family confrontations. Richard's hand shook as he finally reached for the pen. The signature he scrawled bore little resemblance to his once confident penmanship. The man who dismissed me as a disappointment at Mother's funeral now accepted my terms just to keep a roof over his head. One by one, they signed. 3 signatures. 3 acknowledgments that Catherine Morgan built her empire herself. 3 admissions that the family narrative was wrong. The weight that had pressed against my chest for a decade began to lift. This wasn't the reconciliation some might have hoped for, but it was the resolution I needed. "I'll have copies sent to your respective addresses," Samuel said, collecting the signed contracts. "Is that all?" Richard asked, his voice hollow. "That's all," I confirmed. "The terms are clear. Richard, you'll have access to the rental property starting tomorrow. Ethan, the legal team will contact you Monday. Brianna, orientation begins next week." They stood to leave, diminished in ways that had nothing to do with their financial circumstances. Their facades had crumbled, revealing the truth I'd always known but never acknowledged. Their power over me existed only because I allowed it. As they filed out, Eleanor stepped to my side. "Your mother would be so proud of your strength." I watched my family, my blood relations, walk away. They weren't defeated enemies. They were simply people who must now face the consequences of their choices. "This isn't revenge," I said. Quietly. "It's boundaries." The distinction mattered. Revenge seeks to hurt. Boundaries seek to protect. I'd spent too long hiding my success, believing protection required secrecy. Now I understood that true protection comes from standing firmly in my truth. The conference room emptied until only Eleanor and I remained. The signed contracts represented not just a business agreement, but a personal declaration. "I am Catherine Morgan, founder and CEO of KM Atelier, daughter of Martha Morgan. I built an empire while they weren't looking, and now they'll live within its boundaries." The sun set over San Diego Bay, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Mother loved this time of day, the transition between worlds, she called it. Standing in my power at last, I understood what she meant. The New York Times headline stared back at me from my tablet. "Fashion's best-kept secret, Catherine Morgan revealed as K. Morgan." 6 weeks since Mother's funeral, 3 since the revelation that shattered my family's illusions. The article detailed my journey from design school graduate to global fashion empire builder, all while maintaining the facade of running a struggling boutique. "The comment section is overwhelmingly positive," Eleanor said, sliding a sales report across my desk. "Web traffic up 45% since the article broke. Instagram followers doubled overnight." I nodded, still processing this new reality. where I was seen, truly seen, after a decade of shadows. Any word from Richard? Your father's settled into the Coronado condo, Eleanor replied, her expression softening. Donated most of his furniture to that veterans housing project. He called yesterday, actually. Asked if you'd mind if he volunteered at that retirement community's design program. This surprised me. The one teaching seniors to make their own clothing modifications? The very same. Eleanor checked her notes. Ethan's attorney confirmed the crypto transfer, $1.8 million toward the designer restitution fund. Apparently, he's been keeping quite detailed records of everyone he's financially inconvenienced over the years. I turned to the window, watching sailboats cut through San Diego Bay. And Brianna? Completed her first week of sales training, argued with her supervisor twice, then shocked everyone by staying late to reorganize the accessory display. Her manager says she has an unexpected talent for customer relations. 10 years of hiding, of building walls between my success and my family, dissolved in a single afternoon. Now we were navigating something entirely new, a relationship based on truth rather than illusion. The foundation paperwork is ready for your signature. Eleanor placed the folder before me, the Morgan Fund for Emerging Designers. I signed without hesitation. This felt right. Redirecting the media attention towards something beyond family drama. Transforming revelation into opportunity for others. I spent a decade hiding, I told Eleanor, capping my pen. Now I'm seen. But this isn't about me anymore. 6 months later, I stood center stage at the International Design Awards, wearing Mother's vintage dress, which I'd redesigned with subtle contemporary elements. The spotlights no longer made me flinch. It is my honor to present this year's Breakthrough Designer Award, I said into the microphone, my voice carrying confidently through the packed ballroom. The contrast with the trembling woman at Mother's grave couldn't have been more stark. That day in the cemetery, I'd clutched a single white rose while family dismissed everything I'd built. Tonight, I commanded attention from an industry that respected what I'd created. Richard sat at a table near the stage, wearing a suit that fit his new, leaner frame. He nodded slightly when our eyes met. No longer the towering figure demanding compliance, he'd found unexpected purpose, teaching retired craftspeople to adapt clothing for mobility challenges. Ethan sat beside him, reviewing notes for tomorrow's mentoring session with young designers on contract negotiation, his legal expertise redirected toward protection rather than exploitation. And there was Brianna, in a dress from our affordable line she'd helped develop, speaking animatedly with buyers. Her natural talent for connecting with people had earned her a genuine promotion to regional sales director, not through nepotism, but achievement. The Volante integration exceeds all projections, Eleanor whispered as I returned to our table after presenting the award. And the educational initiative launches next month. I squeezed her hand in silent gratitude, Eleanor, the one constant through all of this transformation. When Mother's design journals were published last month with my introduction, I finally understood why she kept my secret all those years. Not to hide my light, but to ensure it couldn't be claimed by those who hadn't earned it. Sunday evening found us gathered around the table in my penthouse. The same configuration of family members as countless dinners before, yet everything had changed. The quarterly numbers look promising, I said, passing the serving dish to Richard, though I'm more excited about the Morgan Recovery Grant results. 3 designers pulled back from bankruptcy already. We're carrying your mother's legacy of nurturing talent, Eleanor added, having taken on directing the foundation with characteristic efficiency. Richard served himself a modest portion, a man still learning new patterns. I've been thinking about Martha's first sewing machine, he said, the singer with the gold detailing. It should be displayed somewhere people can appreciate its significance. We've reserved space in the company museum, I told him, along with her original sketches. Brianna leaned forward. Speaking of the foundation, I had an idea about a scholarship program for the design school, maybe in Mother's name? I've been working with some of the current students, and their financial struggles are significant. The Brianna of a year ago would have considered such students beneath notice. Now she saw them as worthy of support. The transformation wasn't perfect. We all carry our histories. But it was genuine. Ethan discussed legal protections for young designers, his knowledge now a shield rather than a weapon. For the first time, I recognized my brother's intelligence without the shadow of manipulation. As dinner concluded, I stood at the window overlooking the lights of San Diego, the same city where we buried Mother nearly a year ago. The family that gathered then bore little resemblance to the people sitting in my living room now. Success isn't what you own or control, I said, turning back to them. It's the integrity you maintain while building it. Eleanor raised her glass slightly. And the people you help along the way. I touched the locket containing a thread from Mother's first sewing project. The greatest legacy isn't what we build, but how we help others build their own dreams. Mother understood that. Now, finally, so did I. And so, remarkably, did my family.